UCSF Health has been on the path to design buildings via integrated project delivery with much success. He's joined us in looking at real-time development of the 175,000 square foot precision cancer medicine building as it is being Revit 2017 design, BIM specified, and Maximo integrated in order to take advantage of life cycle potentials thus offered. We'll review the tools and software support platforms that all lend themselves to innovate life cycle operation solutions. With that, I would like to introduce Bruce Mace, Senior Director, Medical Center Facilities Management, UCSF Health. Bruce has a career in architecture, design, planning, and development, and then came over to the facilities operations side about 12 years ago.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to, I've got to use one of these guys here, so it's a bit like chewing gum for me, two things going on. She said senior director, just means more gray hair, and I see some out there. We're in operations. I'm a facilities guy by trade at this point. It's been 13 years. We're from UCSF, and we're a regional healthcare. So we're local to the San Francisco Bay Area. We have 4 hospitals, about 120 buildings, 2 million square feet of high occupancy for those of you involved with health. We're just sort of going to tell a story here, do about 30 minutes, and then I've got a 5-minute video, a 4-minute video that was, I personally trapped it right before this trip to show you what Maximo looks like, our CMMS system, with a building inside of it, what it looks like, what we're doing with it. And let's see, when I say we've been very lucky. We have a small team, and we have Mitch DeShields, Jorik de Guzman, and Preeti Kumar with us this morning. That's 3 out of the 5 of us on the team that do this, sort of embedded within the facilities group. And I think it's really important that that fact gets noted, that we are facilities. This is an IT group, career tracks group within facilities. And it was really interesting listening to Joe Porstowski yesterday. Facilities and IT, but coming from a need-based perspective. So we'll pay attention to that as we go through this. We start off the story with integrated project delivery, something that UCSF has really pursued. And as an industry in the construction design, getting projects to fruition, delivery, actually integrating the people, the tools, the systems that are used to deliver those projects. A part of that is BIM, the Building Information Modeling. A lot of people focus very heavily on the modeling part of it. From a facilities perspective, we were really, really interested in the data part of that. What do we do with the data that comes out of that? Part of my history was, I'm architecture, I came from that side, and 13 years ago, came over as a capital projects construction manager, representative for the university, and quickly realized that we were delivering projects to a fence, and then from the owner's perspective, from the facilities perspective, felt like those projects were just simply being thrown over the fence on delivery. It was the first time that facilities had seen them, had not been involved with them, got our keys. We had regulatory standing on one side of us, a patient on the other, and it felt like a real awkward way to get going, knowing that there was a lot more available to be had. So that was sort of the premise for how we got started. Chuck had talked about it yesterday, having a reason for what you're doing, I think incredibly important. Why are you doing it? Who are you doing it for? And what is the expected outcome? What are the solutions that you're looking for? Our group, in sort of a larger way, facilities, we sat down and I'd looked real hard at the design and architecture, construction, and operations, very much siloed at UCSF, and I would guess that's maybe true at a lot of places. Definitely different departments, the handoffs could be rather abrupt, and certainly when I looked back down the pipeline, felt like we had not been involved as early as we needed to in the process to help drive design solutions. So our goal became getting operations in there and trying to create a living, as-built delivery continuum. And the thinking being that we shouldn't be individual silos. We need to lay down on top of each other, and from inception, programming and design, through the 50th, 60th, 70th year, or in our case, we've got a 110-year-old hospital. It should be laid down and be delivered and operated as one continuum. Thus, we started off with our IT career tracks team I introduced here. When I came on board as director in 2010, first 2 months I was on board, senior leadership let me know that our computerized maintenance system was going away in 24 months. We had to come up with another solution and have it implemented, ready to go. I was not a software person, certainly didn't do large-scale software implementations, and that scared me to death, that knowledge. But we sat down, we put together an external team, brought them in-house, built a 5-person team, and we chose IBM Maximo for the potentials that it had. And we were sort of watching Autodesk, and we were watching IBM, and Igor, you were involved in that, looking at the horizon and watching where the big boys were all looking at this convergence. And it sort of gave us, enough confidence that, okay, we're going to use Maximo. We already used Autodesk products. And let's get Maximo up and going, and then maybe we can start working towards this solution. That was the start. People ask, are we there yet as an industry? I really feel like we have gotten to just around the corner. And you hear people talking about it. We call it the 80-20 rule. Yesterday, I think it was TJ was drawn on a board, and he had it as a 85-5-10 rule. But 20% in our mind goes into the design and the construction, getting projects to fruition. And then 80%, fully 80%, is where we live over a matter of a lot of years. So why not look to that 80 years of operations, that 50 years of operations, to really impact both fiscally and, in our case, safety, patient safety, environment of care. You have to have a reason for doing things. This is the UCSF mission, the vision, our values, and then our True North pillars. So that became our foundational framework for why we are doing what we're doing. It becomes our communication mode with senior leadership when we present use cases, when we ask for money, when we ask for team. There's the 80-20. And then the development of electronic tools and processes developed for collaboration, and then most importantly for QA, QC. Data is only as good as you make it be before you bring it into your systems. And that has turned into being just a huge part of our job, and that's part of our learning experience. First adopters, partners, Autodesk, ViewOps, Invicara, IBM, Ecodomus, all critical in us getting up and off the ground. Prior to the start of our current project, which we're going to look at today, we did a proof of concept, and I think it was 2014, taking a part of our new Mission Bay Hospital, which opened in 2015, and looking at the Energy Center and integrating with a viewer, Navisworks at the time, just to try to prove that it worked. Okay. Like I say, we have a hospital, goes back to true blueprints. It was built in 1911. 2D architectural plans, data, flat, written down, limited to what we're looking at today. 3-dimensional architecture, metadata, embedded, object-based, and fabrication capable with this Revit 2017 issuance. This becomes the basis for our whole premise. We were on board with our campus, really important. We're medical center side, there's a campus side, 2 different capital delivery programs. And I was sitting in on a series of meetings, and we were looking at what we're going to do. What's BIM4M? How can we leverage it? Can we use this? And we were frustratingly slow in moving through those meetings, and we were on our 5th one or 6th one. And right in the middle of it, we thought we had this precision cancer medicine building It was about 3 years out. This is in 2015. And UCSF hired Alan Ashworth, a preeminent cancer researcher, ran the London Cancer Institute. We hired him outright. He came over, and part of the promise was, we'll have your building done in 3 years. So instead of starting in 3 years, one day you come to work, and guess what? Alan's on board, and you're going to start, and you're going to be done in 3 years. And so I got myself out of the meetings where we were talking about it, and we sort of said, okay, here's our big chance. Our Mission Bay architect, Stuart Ekblad, very well known, AIA, great guy, very knowledgeable. I ran over to his office, and I'm, Stuart, this is our chance. You know, we can do this. We really want to take a shot, put a stake in the ground, and make this our first BIM project where we're going to utilize it for facilities. And Stuart looked at me and he said, it can't cost any money. You can't rock the boat. You can't affect my timeline. Can't upset any of the contractors, the subs, or the architects. Knock yourself out. I said, and that's about as big of a go as a facilities guy ever got from the architecture side of things. So I ran back, and I was pretty excited, and I said, we got a full buy-in, we're ready to go. And we started building our team really fast, and we'd already started work on an execution guideline and our data dictionary, and we wrapped that up real fast, and we're able to get it into the contract. So we did our best. There was talk yesterday about copying things, asking for things. And we did. We started calling around. We talked to Penn State. We talked to Western Washington, Western Michigan. We talked to everybody. And we got a good round wheel to start with. And the only ask was that any changes you make to it, make it better, give it back to us. And so we're acting on that as we speak. And on this project, I think we're on our 5th iteration of the BIM execution guideline. And we're on about our 7th or 8th iteration of our data dictionary, which has really become a useful tool. Let's see, 5%, absolutely critical for what we do for 2 different reasons. This is Mission Bay Hospital infrastructure. That represents about 5%, roughly speaking, of the entire amount of BIM, the data that comes out of the build. That's the part that is most critical to what my core job is as a director of facilities. Keeping the place running, doing preventative maintenance, being ready for regulatory. And by the way, we got on the airplane, and I've been going to vacation and heading out on a freeway and had Joint Commission show up and turn my car around to go back and hang out for another week. This time we were on the plane coming here, and I got off the plane, and CMMS had shown up at our hospital for a full week survey. So our team is doing really well back there, but that's how ready we always have to be to present data on all this here. We are big on, we named it electronification. Our preventative maintenance, our records, our documentation has to be in place, ready to go, to show a history of what we do, along with the failures, the fixes, the fire and life safety all the time. We've just stood up, by way of background information, Maximo 7609 has an embedded Autodesk large model viewer in it, which allows us the 3D capabilities. Joint Commission, CMMS, they're the ones that are at our hospital right now. Operations and regulatory, all feeding into what drives this 5%. The EOC is our environment of care, technically what I'm hyper responsible for. And then we're 100% BIM specified, contract defined, and delivered. This is turned into the hardest part of everything, was getting it into contract, working with your architecture partners, your leadership, to build the requirements into contract. What we had done before was take data out of the information that was handed to us and then re-engineer it, clean it up, scrub it, and then place it into an operation system. So day one, you get your project, you get your O&M, you get it, and you start building like crazy, and you're vulnerable right then. What we've worked hard at and what we think is necessary is the specification up front, so that the data is coming out and we can move it straight into a CMMS and use it before the building is open. And we'll get there in a minute. Talked about it yesterday. What not to model. Incredibly important. There's a lot of information. It can be archived, it can be accessed, it can be useful, it's very important, but it doesn't all have to be liftable, viewable, and data accessible through the same tool, and we've chosen our Maximo as being that tool. The level of development, or level of development plus data constructibility. Another tool besides the 5% to keep costs reasonable and keep Stuart on my side was we specified 5%. We applied LOD as required for our uses. We added the data requirements on top of an LOD for the model where we needed it, and where we didn't, and a lot of people questioned us on this, a lot of our folks that were bidding and such, said, what about the rest of it? What's your requirement? And we said, no, that's up to you. The LOD is for you to do the constructability for the contract deliverable of that building. We're not going to put any pretense around that. And then our mantra, silly as it sounds, became keep the threshold low enough. For a small group operating within facilities with not a huge budget, but with real good opportunity, it became very, very important to make sure we always kept the threshold low enough that we could get over it to do the next step. If we tried to do too much and couldn't get over that threshold, can't get through the door, well, guess what? The whole thing's going to come to a grinding halt. So we always leave doors open. Some are wide open, some are cracked. We're always looking to the future, but this, keeping the threshold low enough, is absolutely important to us. Okay. Use cases. Right now we're really documenting use cases because that's what it takes to really move into next steps. If you can go across the street to the senior leadership and say, here, we saved $300,000, I'll give you $200,000 back. If I can keep 100 and do some more, I can give you more savings. Became very important. And this was the one that was an eye-opener for me. We believed it in our gut. But we opened up the new hospital, and this is the kitchen area, cafe and kitchen in the back. This is the actual model of that same column. 11:15 at night on a Sunday, and that seems to be when any crisis happens at my hospitals. It is always in the middle of the night on a Sunday, and this one, true to form, I got there 45 minutes later, so about 12:30. My chief engineer got there, same time. Engineers were not finding a source leak in this column that was emanating on the floor here, and it was a serious amount of water, or what we believed to be water. They couldn't isolate it, and that happens. What is it? In the past, we would have run for 2D plans, and we're lucky in a new building because it's only one set or two sets. As a construction coordinator in our old buildings, you'd run for a base set of plans, then you'd pull the 7 different sets of plans that all overlaid what happened in the intervening years and try to understand. But this chief engineer and I were raised and believed in this. We ran for his office for the first time ever, and by 12:35, we're up in his office, we're looking at the model, and we put an engineer down at the base, and we put a guy on the first floor. And we took a look inside the model and said, you know, what are our water sources in there? And we isolated them one at a time, on, off, on, off. Guy at the bottom said nothing happened, and we started working our way up the floors. And in a period of probably less than an hour, around an hour, we were up on the 4th floor, and we were in the OR suite. So standing in the ORs, and alongside where that column came through, and lo and behold, we isolated a system, a water system, and the guy at the bottom said, that's it, it stopped. Turned it back on just to prove a point. He said, stop, it's coming back. We went through that process. We had it isolated. We looked at the pipe configuration in the model and made a sort of a guided guess that, hey, right here is where our problem probably is. We put a containment around it. We had the mechanical guy that actually did the brazing for this project on the way from his home, woke him up, and he came in. He was there by 3:30, and when he arrived on site, he said, "No, it's over here, guys." And he said, I built it. It's over here. And we said, "Oh, Mark, come on. We're all contained. We're ready to go. We're inside an OR." So we had to set up another containment. We busted a hole in the wall, and there was nothing there. We said, "Mark, come over to our containment here." And we ended up being about 16 inches off. So he did the fix in the middle of the night, and by 7 a.m. we had the OR sealed up with plastic. We had our containments down, and this was getting cleaned up down here, and the kitchen opened, and the kitchen affects the entire hospital. An OR generates about $1,000 a minute in revenue. It was open at 8 a.m., and then we were able from there to schedule our shutdown to do, a permanent fix on that OR. But this was one of those that could have taken days, literally taken days, and caused a lot of damage, and not to mention the revenue loss. And this is where we just said, holy cow, this is the way we're going. And as we started building, we were working on our 3D stuff. This is PCMB. And just in very simple terms, from that experience, we said, wow, what can this do for us to help in that situation? Well, we have a leak here. System can tell us that we have an isolation valve here. Same system can tell us our distribution is down here. I can send folks there to tell the nurses that you're going dry. I can send an engineer here to isolate, and I can do this all really pretty immediately, and I can do it off mobile, I can do it off a handheld. Most important from a facilities perspective, and I looked at them just going to the restroom here, there's some really nice little 12-inch access panels in the hallway there. When things are really going on and you got hot water pouring out and you need to get your shoulders up there, you need it to be clear, we put in 24-inch by 24-inch pseudo columns, and we hung them on every fire smoke damper, every valve, everything that we need to actuate or access in the ceiling of the entire PCMB, and those went in first. And so as they were designing, all the systems went around clear. And so you've got a 24 by 24 clear access to that isolation valve built into the building for the first time ever. And my engineers are extremely excited about that capability. Back to Chuck's adage here. What are the solution sets? What are we trying to do? And this is in combination with our Keep the Threshold Low. New construction, this precision cancer medicine building is an example of that. Our Mission Bay Hospital and our Gateway Medical Building, which this attaches to, 7 stories, they were built with a Revit, ArchiCAD, Archibus, CAD, proprietary software. They were built with a mishmash of information, and that required going back and sort of extracting carefully the information we want. So right now we are stabilizing the mixed model, so it'll be one model with our new construction attached to it and allow us to operate. There's going to be renovations. We all know that renovation is constant. The big part here is going to be big projects. Go with your building execution plan. You've got a data dictionary. You've got big builders, big architects. They can do that kind of work. What about the small work? And how small is too small? You don't have to worry about it. We're going through that process right now, and we leveraged with our architecture department, and this is part of the laying down of silos. My colleague was going to hire an architect, and I said, wait, time out. Let's not just hire an architect. Let's hire an architect that's BIM knowledgeable, Revit knowledgeable, that's been in the models, and we got a guy, and he's been perfect for the team. So he sits inside of Revit. He's been a detailer, he's VDC, and he's also a Berkeley architecture grad. So sitting with this group here, he has perspective from the model, from what it looks like to do the build and the construction. And then recreate existing in Revit. And Joe, this is your body of work, which is a fantastic solution for planning. We have an operations perspective to it. So we're calling it our space shell diagrammatic one line. We've got Revit space floor models for our other hospitals, and then we'll start building, as we build our team and our use cases, we will start building into creating that in our existing hospitals. Sort of our drivers, we're operation-centric, solution-driven. Emergency response is huge for us. Data tracking, we want to be able to track data, look at data, manipulate it from within our CMMS. We want to integrate controls. Igor, you're probably preeminent in, I'd say, the world on some of this stuff here, doing the whole, all these things. We're chewing off the ones that we can afford to and can with our team. Fire and life safety is huge for us. So what we can do to work with fire and life safety, and I forget who was talking about it, it was TJ or somebody, but the fire and life safety, when I was going from Navis and going over to Glue and Field and was playing with learning how to drive, I was like, wow. Turned on my 2-hour walls, my 1-hour walls, gave them different colors, turned everything else off, went into plan view. That's integrated with Maximo. Now I have a basis for a fire and life safety program for my hospital. When somebody touches it and wants to go in and renovate a large scale, what walls are they touching that are pink and orange, and how can I track them to back follow them to verify that fire and life safety hasn't been compromised, that holes are filled. Solutions started creeping up and throwing themselves out in front of us, uses for this type of technology. IoT capable, you hear a lot. The future holds for us with being able to take in all kinds of information, utilize information. We got a slide for that. And then scalable. You know, it's got to be handleable for us. It's got to be scalable, make it bigger, to do more over time as we grow more expert in doing it. And how much more time we got? Just so I'm, what do we got? Okay, cool. Internet of Things, once again, in our hospital, sound, fire alarm, vibration, yeah, sound analysis, lights, humidity and temperature are huge for us. Pressure relationships, that's huge all the time. Which way air is going, how fast is it going? That's what they're looking at in our hospital right now, and we're doing good. Real-time location, RTLS, heating and cooling. We talked about leaving doors cracked open. There's a lot of doors there. Planning for inclusion. We're planning on including these. We're moving towards that. Use case development for the arguments, the white paper with senior leadership to move forward. Moving from a reactive maintenance or a preventative maintenance program to actual predictive, something starting to vibrate, make a sound. That piece of equipment, that flow can tell you in advance something's starting to go out of whack. That's very real. And another one of our made-up words, robusting, you know. We're building things. So if we go out in the field, and we're now in the model, and we're using field, and we're out looking at things, what does the work process look like to allow our engineers to be filling in additional data to keep the original data ask light for cost reasons on the project that we can be filling in with our normal rounds and our normal maintenance as we're building buildings. All of our valve tags, standard brass tags, we've QR'd and we've got a matrix with security built into it to keep the matrices separate from the actual building data. And then we allow our guys to add in that information, extra information on the valves, area served, plans, everything attached to it. So it's a framework as much as anything else. Life cycle for guys like me, responsible for the whole cycle. This was the construction part, big break, always been there. This is sort of the 80% operations and maintenance part here. We're now incorporating this because we're reaching back and specifying for construction and involved during construction. And then the renewal, rebuilding, renovating, that part we want to bring into the life cycle to make whole. And if we can get to the true facility life cycle and have it melded and agile and moving and providing information. We can generate our 3, 5, 10-year strategic requests, our look-aheads much more accurately, drive our capital request pipeline instead of myself standing in front of senior leadership and asking for $48 million, because this is why I think it needs to be, providing the data that says it needs to be. It'll give us a total cost of ownership view that is much more accurate. Risk versus renewal costs. If we don't renew, what's our risk? That's really, really important, and we have very real risks. But to be able to look at that much more accurately is a byproduct of this whole process. We had University of California, Dylan was visiting us, and he's from procurement, and he came over and was pitching an idea that in the UC system that, wow, if we knew what we put into buildings to build the buildings, and we knew at all our campuses, and I think we got 12 or 13 now, in procurement, we could save $70 million a year, just in procurement. But we'd have to have the data. Is there any way you guys could get the data out of the project and format it? We'd like it in Kobe format. We said, well, sure, we just need to spec it. What do you want to know about? And it was sort of this idea that we flew through the model and we were showing them how it worked and what it looked like and our equipment and our job plans, and we're walking halls, and he said, great, we can go out back and let's validate it. We can go out there right now and look at it. And we said, yeah, that's another big light bulb went off. We went out the back, took a look down, and that's where we were. It was grade beams coming out of the dirt, and yet we were in the model looking at very real processes, building Maximo job plans. We were that far ahead. That was another big light bulb. We were 2 years ahead in my mind, 20 months ahead at least. And we were validating our no access zones. We were reviewing submittals, creating and sharing QA/QC rules, data slices, validation tools, verifying our equipment, our format, our data dictionary. And we're going to come up 100% operationally live in April 2019, so less than 27-month build for this particular construct, which is very fast. And most importantly, because our engineers are inherently involved in this whole process, every step of the way, and now we're in the field. The steel's up, the envelope is almost complete. Our chillers, we're just going to be picking next weekend. They've been out there looking at it, seeing it. We're making plenty of corrections against the model. What's in the field isn't what the model shows. We send a snapshot, here's the model, this is the way it's supposed to be done, this is what the field shows. Now let's fix it. All that taking place, and the byproduct is, on day one, we're operational, we've been involved, and we've been in the field, and that engineering group knows that building inside and out. Okay? So the nuts and bolts of our world, and is, real quickly, this is Maximo, so it's our CMMS system. We stood up the latest about a month and a half ago. And then we have taken the trade models. So right now we've got 5 or 6 trade models that are being used to construct this building. They'll be later merged into the owners or the facilities as operated, living as operated model as one of our deliverables. But right now we're able to, we'll show you, we'll walk through it here. Did we start? All right, so that's Maximo. That's my version, my desk. We open up. For those of you who know Maximo, this is what it looks like. BIM projects, we got one, so there's not a huge repository there. Assets, it's an IBM product. Just click on any asset. We open up a selection of what's in there right now. There we go, all the standard parts of Maximo that are available to us. Click on the 3D, we open up, there's our models. This one's the architectural exterior, so that's the PCMB building. Nothing on the roof right now. Most of the exterior skin's on there. There's the set that's going into the build, so this is actually the working construct, which is very important. It'll later be merged for a delivery. This is mechanical, what it looks like, and there's columns, all the orange things there that'll get turned off later, that'll allow us access. Something as simple as naming that a Climate Craft Air Handler 7, because we already got 6 up there. Normally, this would become Air Handler 1 again, and my engineers would go up and whine about it for the next 20, 30 years, that we got 2 Air Handler 1s. Simple things that we're running by them, that we're working with them. Right there, bag in, bag out filter, BIBO. Once again, we're in Maximo, so we can look at all the information that comes out of the model that we've prescribed be in the model in a certain format from the get-go. And this is available through our Maximo, so what they're used to working with, what they carry in the field. And for us, it's mostly how do we contain it, how do we show it, what data do we want to be right up front. Once again, there's the whole, some of our columns. And this is me driving, so bear with me. Down here on the plumbing model, we can zip in there. What do we want to know about it? Let's say I want to know about a shower. We don't have showers for people so much as we have showers for emergencies. Type one in, there we go. Where is it? There's one there. It's a Guardian eye wash. There's the unique identifier, real important background. But if I want to know more about that particular eye wash, and this is true of any asset that's in our model, properties, and all this information is going to really start flowing out here in another couple months and populating. And then it's going to be prioritizing what we want to be right up front for our engineers. But we're in Maximo, so it's as simple as opening a work order for that asset that you've identified visually. PM history, work history. I can walk with a surveyor with a handheld, show them everything about that particular asset. My guys and girls can know all about what went into this emergency eye wash. This one is always interesting to me. So the BIM object itself, what data goes in, metadata is associated with objects that go into the architecture. And then the actual manufacturer's information on it. We also have history on the submittals, changes, RFIs, all built in, valuable information, especially if you got to do forensics when something happens down the road, which it does. So anyway, that's where we're heading. This is live now. This project will be, I'm talking about futures. Equipment. What do we want to know about equipment? So here's a floor of equipment that's in there, and there's a CT scanner. Most of this we don't need to know about from a facilities perspective. We sort of take care of things up to the point of connection. But the future of knowing what the interconnectivity is and what it could do for other departments, what it can do for our interactions becomes critical. So anyway, that sort of wraps it up. And then time for questions. 5 minutes for questions. All right. Igor.
First question. The biggest challenge I've seen so far in all the projects is how the end users, your technicians, engineers, are going to be using that. Right? So have you already thought it out? Like, are you going to give them access to Maximo on the as an online interface, or are you going to give them the iPads, or are you going to ask them to come to some room that will have a big screen that they will be looking at?
We have a room with a big screen that you can look at, and typically the deep dive takes more knowledge. It's not going to be every single engineer with that capability, but certainly assistants and chiefs, ourselves, will be able to do that. For the users in the field, our engineers that are typically doing a work order, right? Not so much investigation off of handheld, absolutely. Using field right now, getting trained up in the field on iPads to do verification of data, robusting of data, adding to the body of knowledge associated with assets. That's taking place on iPads. And it's not every engineer doing all. It's a small group doing the iPad robusting. All engineers to have Maximo capability with viewer. And then they're, like I said, the assistants and the chiefs and ourselves, management level, access in M1378 to the big screen for full dives.
So the actual users who are going to be accessing 3D BIM mostly going to be your team of 5 people who are going to be telling the technician, go there and fix that thing.
No, I wouldn't say that. I'd say we've got a really, really good group of engineers. And when we built the hospital, we poached a lot of folks from the build, from various teams, you know, that, hey, you want to work here? And they're very knowledgeable and they're very gung-ho about this whole process. They want to learn. We've actually put the brakes on, you know, let's do this one step at a time. So that yet to be seen, but yeah, we have a robust group. Miss?
So you mentioned this is an IT project.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about whose responsibility it was to integrate data and create the Revit files, whether it was the contractor's role or the AE role, and how that was shared?
Yeah, it was contractor's responsibility. So we have a contractor liaise who's really been really good. This was a best bid contract, so we made part of the contract was looking at BIM VDC skills, and when we interviewed on that part of it to go along with the money, and I don't know, that contract style is allowable for public entity in the state of California. I'm not sure about elsewhere. We went and looked at their projects and what they had done in the past, and we actually got most capable. What we have learned over time is this team working with a single point person, contractor, VDC BIM, for all the trades, was a little problematic, and not his fault. He's tremendous at his job. But it was the communication of what we wanted to these guys. So in electrical, one day they threw up their arms and said, oh my God, the contract says we've got a model down to a 1/2-inch conduit. We can't do that. But they, you know, you're in contract. We're not going to beat people over the head. We got to the table, we sat down, we said, okay, oh, we get it, right? You guys bend your conduit, your 1/2-inch around everybody else, and to go back and put that in the model accurately to the LOD standard we had in there, it would kill everyone. So we said, what we really need is we need to know where the drops are, we need to know the circuit on there, and we need to know the distribution. So if you give me the 3/4 inch to a home run with the distribution above it, give me the drop location with the circuit, we'll waive that other part. So there's a real working, and that led to a sitting down at the table every single week, and we have solutions on the data QA/QC side and tools, and we've built tools that we share with the project team and help them work through, because it's a real change of culture. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm wondering is if, and maybe it's also California being a little bit more on the forefront of technology, but finding subcontractors that are capable of using Revit application.
Yeah.
So I was just curious.
I would get.
Contractors a lot of times.
I would guess that we're very lucky being in the San Francisco Bay Area. The contractor pool, the architect pool, really relying on technology. It is a shift. It's a huge shift, and we've heard that from our subs and from our architect. But we're working together and saying, here's tools, here's how we can help you. And in the future, and Igor, I think this is what you're driving at, there's solutions that are going to be bolt-on, plug-in. That data can't get out to you until it's correct, and that's what we're working as well. Dylan?
30-second comment on the disruption to your existing workforce. When you started doing this, there's a lot of folks that I hear when I've heard you present before, they say, we can't do that with our workforce, but it seems to me that you took a bite-sized approach at it. I'm just curious if you can comment on how it was initially received and how it's being received currently with your
Gotcha.
existing staff.
Yeah, so when we came on board with Maximo, we had to have a team to implement Maximo. We did it for medical center and campus side. So we had allocated 3.2 FTE to the ongoing maintenance effort on just on Maximo. We raised our hand and said we'd like to do it. We put together the team and we run it through governance for both sides, campus and educational. That gave us control over sort of direction. And then we've augmented with campus has given us 1 FTE. We've got an architecture guy that we share with our architecture department. He works in architecture 3 days a week and with us 2 days a week. So it's a leveraged small group and very targeted. That's why trying to keep it reasonable. Sir?
Craig Dugler, NC University.
We left that slide out, but the roadmap, and Igor could tell you, the roadmap for doing that sort of access and keeping things alive and changed it's very complex, and trying to keep it simple enough with not as few moving parts as possible is critical. I thought about throwing it in here, maybe next time I should. We change the BIM execution plan and data dictionary and such. That contractually would be a requirement on very large projects. Smaller projects, you know, we do a ton of work, you know, where you got a small guy, small shop, they do a lot of work. Some of the work they do, we're not going to need to know about. We're just going to simply say it's below threshold. A carpet change, wall color for us, yeah, that we might keep. But anyway, we sort of determined a threshold for it. In between the time we're doing what we're doing right now and when that hospital opened on February 1st of 2015, there had been 270 projects to change it. We went through all those changes, all those projects, and we ended up with, I think, roughly 71 that were above threshold for us. So those are being incorporated in the model, and once we can get the model stabilized as operated, then all changes will be to that model as single source of truth viewed through Maximo. Does that help? Revit platform. Yeah.
And documents, you attach them in Maximo and they're on the server, or do you have a cloud-based document management system?
Mitch? Server? Yeah. Yeah, because yeah, and then right now we're going through our cybersecurity. We're University of California, so we're doing being very careful. They're sitting with us every week, and you know, all the security that's required of all this really affects how we do things. Sir?
Oh, I'm sorry. We're over time.
Oh, we're over time. We can chat after. All right, thank you, everyone.